All right, high rollers, on WSOP.com, Nolan Dallow writes, quote, absolutely everything that is bewildering, magnificent, exciting, appalling, and thrilling about the contemporary poker scene was on full display at the 2011 WSOP Ladies World Championship. Our guest today, a fierce competitor at the poker table, a woman who not only played in that crazy tournament, she won it to become the Ladies World Champion. She's had multiple cashes at the WSOP, a few on the World Poker Tour as well, and she recently had a pretty sweet score at the Seminole Casino Coconut Creek. She represents EpicPokerTraining.com. Her name is Marsha Wolak. She joins us now. Marsha, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a high roller today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You have a fantastic show, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of chatting with you and your listeners.
Well, we can't wait either. I'm looking forward to this one. Before we talk about your legendary win in 2011, you are no stranger to running deep in these big multi-field tournaments. I see on Card Player Magazine you scored $70,000 at the Seminole Casino Coconut Creek. Just last year, you finished fourth in that $1 million guarantee. How do you do this? How do you survive these large fields?
I'll tell you what, Derek, it's so great. Like, people get overwhelmed when they go to the World Series, which I know you're covering as well. And I tell people, don't be afraid. I mean, even in the Colossus where there's 20,000 people, you're not playing against 20,000 people. You're only playing between 8 and 9 people per time at your table. So you almost have to go into a vacuum and just study the people at your table and just know you're not playing against the thousands of players. It's just the people at your table.
And I guess if you find yourself in a zone like that, it really becomes one hand at a time. You're in the moment.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important when you sit down to put your phone away and really study the players at your table. Because fortunately, I think table draw is huge when it comes to these deep stack multi-tables. As you know, you're a poker fanatic as well. As when you sit down, you look around, and if you have all the top players in the world at your first table, it's going to be tough. But the goal is in a multi-table to ease your way into deep play where you also have the pros at that stage versus right on your first table.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned all these pros and the big names and the off factor. I played the Omaha HighLow event this past year, and I survived day one somehow. I don't know how I did it. There were 3 bracelet winners at my table the entire day, and over the course of the day, 5 bracelet winners came and gone. It was one of those days where I had a tough table draw. I was kind of in awe, and somehow I managed to get through it. I don't know how. But sometimes you're intimidated, right, if you're not used to it.
Well, the first time you go to the WSOP, and how long ago was it when you went?
The first time I went, I played the Colossus the very first year. I also played the Omaha HighLow event that year, so just 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness, you're a newbie at it. Wow, fantastic. But I remember the first time I went, and it was back in 08 or 09. I had gone to the ladies' academies at that time, taught by Annie Duke, and then I played in the ladies' event. I was so nervous. I was shaking. I was intimidated, only not because of the players, but just the momentous moment of the WSOP with thousands and thousands of players, hundreds of tables, room after room. I have a terrible sense of direction, so I was always lost, trying to find my room, trying to find my table. But the first time is pretty, I was awestruck in a lot of ways. But I love it. I just wait all year to go, as a lot of us play, as you do too. I'm sure you can't wait to go back.
Absolutely. It really was amazing. And my brother-in-law went down. I said, if you're ever going to play a poker tournament, this is the one. He doesn't play live poker, cash games, or tournaments. I said, you got to come down and check it off your bucket list. He played the Colossus, but when he walked into the Rio, into the room with the sea of poker tables, it was like overwhelming. He just sort of went, wow, I can't believe this. So many people.
It really is. And after my first year of being intimidated, and that's a tough word because if you're intimidated, then it limits you and things that you do. So the next year I came in different. I said, I'm just going to focus on my table. I'm not going to worry about these thousands of players and just try to focus on the other people at my table and just block them out. And it really, really helped.
Now, does a score like the one you had last year at the Coconut Creek give you confidence going into the Rio this summer?
Absolutely. In fact, being the director of Epic Poker Training has helped me become a better player also, because I'm always striving to learn new tools, to keep up with the game, to help my students. And in return, I'm helping myself. And my game last year improved dramatically definitely number one reason is because of how hard I was working for my students. So it was just a side effect, a good side effect of that. But I had a really nice run, had my second best financial year ever so far in poker. And I feel this year it started out great, and I'm going to hopefully continue right through the World Series. But sometimes, when you help others, you help yourself in return as an afterthought.
You talk about the intimidation factor, and you see these large player fields at the WSOP every summer still dominated by men. I think the number's like 4% of the field on average is women. I mean, not everybody can be a ladies world champion like Marsha Wolak or a legend like Vanessa Selps, but we need to attract more women to the game. Do you have any thoughts on that? Obviously, if there was an answer, it would have been solved by now.
Well, Derek, I'm really glad that you bring this up because I'm constantly trying to get more women in the game. And I understand we have physical differences. You have more testosterone, we have estrogen. And when you look at the fields, it is a fact, like what you just said, it's 4%, maybe 5%, depending on the tournament. And so there's a reason for that, and it's a lot of times physiological. We're built different, we're emotionally different, and it's intimidating. That's why I literally love ladies events, because I was so intimidated. I only played online for my first couple years because I was too intimidated to walk in a poker room. And if you knew me personally, I'm not afraid of anything. So for me to be intimidated like that, I can imagine there's a problem there. So what the ladies tournaments do, it's a platform stepping stone into the open events. So that's my first tournament. When I heard there was a ladies event in St. Petersburg at Derby Lane was the actual poker room, before they built their new one now. But I went, and I played so bad, Derek. I was nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. I bet out of turn. Actually, I bet out of turn so many times, the third time I got defaulted or whatever you call it. I mean, they couldn't take it anymore. I was so bad. And then I realized, I want to work on my game, and when I went in to the 2-day, the Ladies Academy where Annie Duke taught, I said to myself, I was so impressed with her teaching skills. I said, I would love to, do well and be able to give back like she's doing and be half of an instructor as she was. So the minute I won, the next day I was helping others and trying to, bring more women in the game. But I like, I help men too. I just love the game of poker. Female, male. I used to play pro tennis, and for me, it kind of is a neutral sport, a neutral gender sport. It's, you're using your brain, but then again, there really is that physiological difference that we have, which is why there's only 4 to 5% of women. So I know that we talk about the topic of women's tournaments, women in tournaments, and the tournament that I won. A man actually made the final table for the first time in history, and all I heard was the buzz. Oh my gosh, there's a chance a man could win. And, Nolan was there, and then it just became, the spectators started out just around, and 2 deep, 3 deep, 4 deep, because as he made final table, it occurred to all of us women there that, you know what, if he wins this thing, it's going to be really bad for women's poker, because, there's enough intimidation already. And I suffered the year before, as you know the story, but I actually lost in the ladies' event to a man dressed up as a woman in lipstick, high heels, dress. I had pocket aces. We had about the same amount of chips. I'm all excited because I'm all in pre-flop, thinking I'm going to pretty much take all his chips, but maybe one, because he had me covered by like one chip. And of course, his middle pair hits his set, and that was it for me. And I thought to myself, the next year, I thought, you know what? Initially, I wasn't going to play because it's hard enough for women to come out and feel comfortable and play in these big venue events. And here we have a women's event where, okay, it's mostly more social, and it's, we know we're going to be with women, so it's a lot easier, but to have that going on. So I wasn't even going to play. And then at the last minute, I'm a very positive person, and I like to overcome adversity. I've overcome a lot in my life. I just said, how bad could it be, Marsha? You lost to a woman dressed up as a man with pocket aces all in pre-flop. No matter what happens this year, it can't be a worse experience, and I can't play my last ladies event with that experience. So it was awesome because I entered, actually, might have been the last flight, last day, and ended up winning it. So it was really Great. And not only did I win it, but I won it, I felt, when I knocked Jonathan Epstein, who made the final table. When I knocked him out of the final table, it didn't matter if I actually went on to win the trophy and win the bracelet. I really felt, Derek, I already won right there. Kind of brought the last year home as well.
I mean, you just told the whole story, and I wanted to talk to you about this. It's amazing because there you are in 2010, and you come across Shaun Deeb, a well-known poker player, one of the best around. He knocks you out of the tournament. What was that experience like in terms of Shaun Deeb? Was he okay about it, or how did it go down?
Unfortunately, and I like to stand up for my beliefs, my principles, not only in the poker world, but I do it in my life for my kids, whatever the thing is. So, men feel that they enter because the women's field is so soft, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a lot of great women players out there. But when they play, for them to dress up in high heels, lipstick, they're making fun of us. And it's no excuse to say, oh, somebody, it's a prop bet, or somebody bought me in. That's really a lame excuse. And for instance, this year, it's obviously now 10,000. But unfortunately, there was one person, and I'm embarrassed to say he's from South Florida, and I didn't understand the details until I walked up to him because I just don't understand. It's Tony Roberto. And I'm like, Tony, why in the world would you pay $10,000 to play in the ladies' event? And right next to him was a guy, and he says, no. He put me in, as if it's some excuse that makes it okay why he enters the ladies' event. And I said, well, Tony, that you still played it. And I said, why? But when I realized, when I looked to it was next to him, it was somebody that I know doesn't really respect women, because he actually was arrested for improper and illegal behavior on an underage female. So, it all kind of brings home the fact that, there's people that disrespect women, there's people that disrespect men, there's people that disrespect the elderly, there's people that disrespect, the veterans, things, But you know what? I'm support of the seniors tournament, the ladies tournament, charity tournaments. Of course, I wish everybody would respect in return, but obviously there's people out there that don't have a clue. I always default to my morals and principles and values, and I just don't understand that.
So poor, I'm not saying poor because he was catcalled and booed, but I mean, there he was at the final table. What was the consensus among the women left? I mean, we got to knock this guy out, right? This isn't right.
Absolutely. And Derek, it was like we didn't even need to say anything. Each of us, and it was instinct, subconscious, we didn't even need to talk. Each of us wanted to knock him out. And I just remember like people in hands against him, the disappointment when they'd lose the hand, and then, chips would go to him. And I saw it. I even had said, Marsha, two things, please. I want to knock him out, but I certainly don't want to be knocked out by him. You start a tournament, and I always believe I can win, but my number one goal was to knock him out. And it almost kind of overshadowed winning the tournament, because we knew the importance of it right at that moment. All the spectators that were people deep, watching this, thinking that a man could possibly win the ladies' event, and he could, if he got through the final table. And that would have been a real shame for women's poker, because that would have discouraged so many more women from entering.
Well, you talk about knocking him out, almost overshadowing the victory. It certainly can't overshadow the title of world champion. That's important, right?
It is, but, Derek, I am a person, I'm not a materialistic person. Of course, I always want to do well, I want to win, but I am driven by my morals and principles. I'm driven by a lot of things other than just money and gold bracelets. They're fantastic, but I have two children, I have hobbies, I play pickleball, tennis, I have a lot of great friends. So I saw the magnitude of that moment, and I was one of the final tablists that could knock him out. And at that moment, I remember to this day, and I mentioned to you, I didn't breathe the entire hand. I'm glad I'm a good swimmer, and I could. When I grew up, my son is good too. We used to test each other who can hold our breath the longest, but I held my breath the entire hand. I had pocket tens, and I barely had him covered. So whoever won that hand was pretty much done for the tournament, and I was on the button, and I shoved my stack, and he calls out of the blind with ace queen, and my tens held. And that's the best race I've ever won in my life. Maybe the best race I ever win. And it meant a lot to me. And really, the celebration after that hand might have been bigger than the celebration after I won the tournament. I believe it was.
Well, you were quoted afterwards as saying you had to pinch yourself to make sure it really happened, that you felt like you won it twice. You talk about magnitude. I mean, they changed the rule, right? Give credit to the WSOP.
I tell you what, I handed to them, and I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision for them. You know, I'm sure it skirts some legal boundaries somewhere, but I really appreciate their effort in doing that. And now we're kind of the opposite. So if somebody wants to pay $10,000, that's like 10 ladies adding to our prize pool. By the way, Tony Roberto, who entered and paid $10,000 from his backer last year, didn't make it to the first break. So for people that think that ladies are so weak, please, there are some super ladies. One just won the first WPT event ever for women. Women are getting better and better by the day. So I think that's just a myth. But whatever the reasons they're entering, it's definitely not because we are weaker players.
Absolutely not. I mean, if the percentage of women in the fields were 50-50, the results would be just the same.
Exactly.
Now, you're in Florida. Lastly, by the way, they have raised the buy-in. That's the big difference to $10,000 now, and women get a $9,000 discount. That was a great move by the WSOP. I've had a lot of guests on. We always talk about the poker scenes in Las Vegas and perhaps the true Mecca, which is LA. The scene out there is crazy. But you're in Florida, and I mean, it's dynamite there too, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, Derek, it is awesome here. I used to travel a lot more, and now I'm like, why? Like, for instance, next week starts the Hard Rock Series. They have, these huge guarantees, $1 million for 570 buy-in, a 500,000 for 360. The 3,500, 5 million guarantee. They have high rollers, 25,000 and 50,000 high roller events. They had an amazing event last year that I was fortunate enough to make final table before the Coconut Creek. I made one of their big 4 televised final events. I finished third for 50, and it was fantastic. They had the main event. They had the 1100, they had the high roller, and they had us going at the same time, all televised for Poker Night in America. It was fantastic. So I'm getting pretty spoiled where even though I own a Prius, I'm not driving it very much anymore to tournaments. I'm pretty happy right here.
Well, absolutely. My dad spends the winters down in Florida, and I've been to Derby Lanes before, enjoyed a very successful run there over the course of 8 hours. So I love Florida poker. Listen, good luck this summer at the Rio. Good luck at becoming the world champion ×2. And we really appreciate your time. By the way, lastly, epicpokertraining.com, Jessica Dawley. You've got Natasha there, Jason Mercier's wife. You've got some pretty good company over there.
I'll tell you what, and we just have world-renowned Donna Blevins added as our poker mindset coach. We have an awesome 13-week online poker academy like you go to school for college. It's a poker college totally online, and it'll be automated next month. Each week you get your videos, your homework, your tests, and there's a 100-question final exam at the end. It's awesome. It focuses on no limit tournament and cash game only. So it's awesome.
Well, continued success. Good luck this summer. She is the 2011 WSOP Ladies World Champion. She is at Marsha Wolak on Twitter. Marsha, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Derek. It was a blast. And good luck to you this summer also. Hope to see you there.